Officer Nina Khan drove slowly through the quiet streets of her city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was her usual evening patrol, a time when most people were heading home from work and the streets were calm. Nina liked these quiet hours. They gave her time to think and notice small details that could be missed during busy daytime shifts. As she turned a corner near Maple Avenue, something unusual caught her eye. A small bag was lying on the sidewalk, close to a lamp post. It looked like someone had forgotten it, or maybe it had been left there on purpose. The bag was simple, dark blue, with no labels or logos. It did not look like it had been stolen or abandoned for a long time. Curiosity pulled Nina closer. She parked her car and got out, careful to watch her surroundings. The streets were almost empty, except for a few late walkers. She bent down and picked up the bag. It felt light but not empty. She shook it gently and heard a soft rustling inside. Nina frowned. Something about this bag seemed odd. Why would anyone leave a bag here in the middle of the evening? Nina unzipped it slowly. Inside, she saw a few personal items. There were some papers, a small notebook, and a set of keys. Nothing seemed dangerous. There was no money, no weapons, and no electronics. Still, it felt strange to find a bag like this on an empty street. Nina decided it was safer to place it in her car while she finished her patrol. She did not want to leave it outside where someone else might take it. As she placed the bag on the passenger seat, Nina glanced around. The street was calm. A gentle breeze moved the leaves on the trees. Birds were settling down to rest. Everything seemed peaceful. Nina shook her head and smiled at herself. She often imagined exciting cases, but tonight, it was just a lost bag. Nina returned to her patrol route, but her mind kept returning to the bag. She thought about the person who might have left it. Was it a student, a worker, or someone in trouble? The questions made her curious. She knew she had to be careful. Sometimes, small things like a lost bag could lead to bigger problems. As she drove past a small park, Nina noticed a figure sitting on a bench. The man looked nervous. He kept glancing around and shifting his position. Nina slowed down and watched him carefully. He did not notice her at first. Then he got up and walked toward a narrow alley. Nina's instincts told her to keep an eye on him. There was something about his behavior that did not feel normal. She decided to continue driving slowly, keeping the man in view. He stopped near a dumpster and bent down. Nina could not see exactly what he was doing, but it seemed like he was hiding something. She made a mental note of the location. After a few moments, the man walked away quickly, disappearing from sight. Nina felt a little uneasy. She wondered if he had any connection to the bag she had found. Her radio crackled, and another officer reported a minor traffic incident nearby. Nina acknowledged the call but kept thinking about the bag. She parked her car near a quiet street corner and opened the bag again. She wanted to see if she had missed anything. That was when she noticed a small folded paper sticking out from the lining. It was hidden in a way that someone might not see at first glance. Nina carefully pulled it out and unfolded it. She could see writing and a seal she had seen in official documents before. Her eyes narrowed as she read it. This was not just any piece of paper. It carried a name and an official mark. Nina's heart started to beat faster. She had a feeling that this bag was not just a lost item. It could be very important. For a moment, Nina felt a mixture of excitement and concern. She knew she had to be careful. Handling unknown evidence could be risky. At the same time, she knew that finding something important was part of her job. Nina took a deep breath and decided she would report this to her supervisor. She placed the paper and the bag safely on the passenger seat and made sure everything was secure. The sun had almost disappeared behind the buildings. The city lights began to glow, and the evening felt cooler. Nina started her car again, keeping the bag with her. She drove slowly toward the precinct. Her mind was full of questions. Who did the bag belong to? Why was it left there? What did the paper mean? As Nina approached the station, she realized that tonight might be more interesting than she had expected. A simple lost bag had turned into a mystery. She did not yet know how big this mystery would become, but she felt ready to face it. Nina parked outside the station, took a deep breath, and stepped out with the bag. Something told her that her quiet evening patrol had just become the start of a very important case. Officer Nina Khan walked into the precinct with the small blue bag carefully held in her hands. The fluorescent lights above gave the room a sterile glow, but tonight the station felt unusually quiet. A few officers were typing reports or speaking in low voices. Nina headed straight to her supervisor's office. Her mind raced with questions. Something about the bag had felt unusual from the moment she found it. Nina knocked lightly on the door. "Come in," her supervisor called. Nina stepped inside and placed the bag gently on the desk. "I found this on Maple Avenue tonight," she said. "It looked like a lost bag, but there is something strange inside." She opened the bag and pulled out the small folded paper. "I think this might be important." Her supervisor, Lieutenant Harris, took the paper and examined it carefully. He raised his eyebrows. "Where did you say you found this?" "Near the lamppost on Maple Avenue," Nina replied. "I didn't touch anything else, just brought it here." Harris studied the paper for a long moment. The official-looking seal made Nina curious. "This looks like a federal document," he said. "It has a warrant on it, I think." Nina felt a chill run down her spine. A federal warrant meant serious trouble. This was not a routine lost item anymore. Her heart started to beat faster, and her mind filled with questions. How had this ended up in the street? Who did it belong to? Just then, the station radio crackled with a call from the federal office. Lieutenant Harris picked up the phone and spoke in low tones. After a few minutes, he hung up. "Federal agents are on their way," he said. "They want to see the bag and the warrant immediately." Nina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had handled lost items before, but she had never been part of something that involved federal agents. She quickly organized the bag, making sure nothing was moved or damaged. The paper was carefully folded and placed on top. Every detail mattered now. A short while later, 2 agents arrived. They introduced themselves politely but with an air of authority. One agent took the bag and paper, examining the details closely. "This is authentic," he said after a moment. "And this is a serious matter. We have been tracking this individual for months." Nina leaned forward, curious. "Who is he?" she asked. The agent looked at her carefully. "Daniel Malik. He has been involved in large-scale fraud and smuggling. Local police have seen him for minor issues before, but this is far more serious. That bag you found may contain important evidence connecting him to the case." Nina's mind raced. She had seen Malik around the city before. He always seemed calm and careful. She never imagined he could be connected to something so big. Suddenly, the bag she had picked up on a quiet street had become a key piece in a federal investigation. The agents explained the next steps. They needed to gather more information about Malik's activities without alerting him. Nina was asked if she could help with observation and reporting. She felt a mix of fear and determination. She knew she had to be careful, but she also knew this was her chance to make a real difference. For the next hour, Nina helped the agents review what they knew about Malik. They went through notes, photos, and locations. Each detail was important. Nina noticed patterns that even the agents had not seen. Her familiarity with the city streets and local neighborhoods gave her an advantage. She suggested a few places Malik might visit based on habits she had observed during her patrols. The agents nodded approvingly. "Your instincts are good," one said. It could help us predict his next move. After the meeting, Nina returned to her patrol car. She felt a sense of responsibility weighing on her shoulders. The quiet evening she had expected had turned into the beginning of a serious investigation. Every detail she noticed could make a difference. She thought about the bag lying in the precinct and the small paper inside. It had seemed harmless at first, but now it was evidence that could change the course of the case. As she drove through the streets, Nina's mind replayed the events of the evening. She remembered the man near the park and the alley. Could he be connected to Malik? She decided to keep an eye on locations Malik might visit, just in case. By the time she returned to the precinct, the city was dark, and street lights flickered along the sidewalks. The agents were already preparing surveillance plans. Nina felt both nervous and excited. She knew she was stepping into something important. For the first time in her career, Nina realized how small decisions could lead to major consequences. Picking up a lost bag had brought her directly into a federal investigation. She knew the next few days would be challenging. She had to stay alert, careful, and smart. Nina took a deep breath, ready for what was coming. The quiet streets of her city were about to reveal secrets she had never imagined. A simple found bag had turned into the beginning of a dangerous and important journey. Officer Nina Khan sat at her desk in the precinct, her eyes fixed on the small blue bag she had found the night before. The folded paper with the federal warrant rested carefully on top. She could not stop thinking about it. The more she stared at it, the more questions came to her mind. Who was this Daniel Malik, and how had a simple lost bag become connected to such a serious crime? Lieutenant Harris walked over, holding a folder with a photo. "This is Daniel Malik," he said, handing it to Nina. She took it and studied the man's face. His eyes were sharp, and his expression was calm, almost too calm. Nina realized she had seen him around the city before. He always seemed polite, blending in with the crowd. She never imagined he could be involved in anything serious. The agent who had come yesterday spoke up. "Malik is clever. He keeps his personal life separate from his criminal activities. That is why it took months for federal authorities to gather evidence against him. And now, thanks to your discovery, we have a lead that might accelerate the case." Nina's heart raced. She had never been part of anything like this before. The city she knew so well suddenly felt different. It was no longer just streets and buildings. It was full of hidden stories and dangers that she had never noticed. The agents explained more details about Malik's activities. He was accused of fraud and smuggling across state lines. They had been tracking him carefully, but he rarely left traces. The warrant indicated that if he was caught, it could lead to a major breakthrough in the investigation. Nina felt the weight of the situation. This was no longer a small case of a lost item, it was now part of a federal operation. She thought about the bag again. The papers inside could be the key to proving Malik's crimes. She wondered why he had left it on the street. Had he dropped it accidentally, or was it left there for someone else to find? The questions made her more determined to understand the situation. Nina decided to take a closer look at the contents of the bag. She carefully removed each item, laying them out on the desk. There were receipts, small notebooks, and envelopes. At first glance, everything seemed ordinary. But she knew better now. Even the smallest detail could reveal a secret. She picked up a notebook and opened it. Inside were notes with names, numbers, and dates. Some pages had scribbles that looked like codes. Nina's eyes widened as she realized that this could be direct evidence connecting Malik to his illegal activities. She took photos of everything, following the proper procedure. Lieutenant Harris watched her work. "You are handling this very well," he said. "Remember, we must be careful. Malik is dangerous if he realizes we are close to him. For now, observation and patience are our best tools." Nina nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. She had always thought of herself as a careful officer, but this was a new level. She needed to balance caution with action, and every decision mattered. Later, the federal agents asked Nina about Malik's habits. "Have you seen him around the city?" one agent asked. Nina thought carefully. "Yes," she replied. "He is quiet, polite, and blends in easily. He sometimes visits the park and the small coffee shops near the downtown area. Nothing seems unusual, but he is always careful about who notices him." The agents nodded. "Good. Those details are helpful. Even small observations can make a difference." Nina realized that she had a unique advantage. Being a local officer, she knew the streets, the neighborhoods, and the people. That knowledge could help the federal team predict Malik's moves. She felt a mix of pride and nervousness. This case was bigger than anything she had faced before, and she had a part in it. As the evening passed, Nina returned to her patrol car. She kept thinking about Malik. Who was he really? How did someone like him get involved in serious crimes without anyone noticing? The city she knew so well now seemed full of secrets. Every corner, every alley, every small action could hold hidden meaning. Nina drove slowly through the streets, her eyes scanning for anything unusual. She remembered the man she had seen near the park on the night she found the bag. Could he be connected to Malik? She decided to keep an eye on areas Malik might visit, carefully noting details without making it obvious. By the time she returned to the precinct, the streets were quiet and calm. Yet, Nina felt a sense of tension. She knew this was only the beginning. The discovery of the bag had opened a door into a hidden world. A world where small details could lead to big consequences. Nina placed the bag back in a secure location at the precinct. She took a deep breath, feeling both anxious and determined. She knew the days ahead would test her skills and patience. But she also knew she was ready. What had started as a simple patrol had now turned into a journey that could change the course of an important federal investigation. The name on the warrant, Daniel Malik, was now at the center of her thoughts. Every move he made could be crucial. Every piece of evidence mattered. And Nina knew she would be ready for whatever came next. Officer Nina Khan arrived at the precinct early the next morning. The city was still quiet, with only a few cars on the streets and soft sunlight beginning to reflect off the buildings. Nina felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Last night's discovery of the bag and the federal warrant had changed her routine patrols into something much more serious. Today, she would be directly involved in the investigation. Lieutenant Harris greeted her with a serious look. "Nina, federal agents are ready to start working with you today," he said. "They want to review your observations and plan the next steps carefully. Are you ready?" Nina nodded. "Yes, sir. I am ready." Shortly after, two federal agents arrived at the precinct. They introduced themselves again, this time with a more formal approach. One of them, Agent Carter, laid out a series of photographs and notes on a table. "We need to know everything you remember about Daniel Malik's habits and locations," he said. "Even small details can be important." Nina studied the materials carefully. She thought back to her patrols, the streets she had driven, and the people she had observed. She shared her notes about Malik, explaining which areas he often visited and what kind of behavior he displayed. She described his routine, the times of day he appeared in certain neighborhoods, and the small actions that made him seem careful yet deliberate. The agents listened attentively. "Excellent," said Carter. "Your local knowledge will be very helpful. Malik is clever. He notices people around him, and he rarely leaves evidence. We need to be cautious. We will start with observation and surveillance. Nothing should alert him." Nina felt the weight of responsibility. She understood that one wrong move could ruin the investigation. At the same time, she felt proud that her discovery of the bag had led to this point. She knew she had a role to play, and she was determined to do her best. The team spent the next hour planning. They divided tasks carefully. Nina would continue patrolling key areas where Malik was likely to appear. Federal agents would set up discreet surveillance cameras and follow leads from other cities where Malik might have connections. Every detail mattered, and no action could be taken without coordination. As they reviewed the bag and its contents again, Nina noticed a small receipt she had overlooked before. It had an address on it, a small warehouse near the edge of the city. She pointed it out to the agents. "I think Malik may have visited this location," she said. The agents examined the receipt and nodded. "Good observation," Carter said. "This could be a significant lead. We will add this to our plan." After the meeting, Nina returned to her patrol car with a sense of purpose. Every street she drove felt important. She paid attention to every detail: the people on the sidewalks, the parked cars, the small alleys. She thought about Malik's careful movements and knew that observation alone might take time. Patience would be essential. As the day passed, Nina followed her assigned route, keeping notes on anything unusual. She saw a delivery van parked near the warehouse address from the receipt. She marked the location and took photos from a distance. She made sure to remain unnoticed while carefully observing the area. She understood that this could be a clue to Malik's activities. Back at the precinct, she reported her findings to the agents. They praised her attention to detail and added the warehouse to their watch list. Plans were made to observe it discreetly over the next few days. Every small discovery felt like a victory, but Nina knew that patience and caution were crucial. By evening, Nina returned to her apartment for a short rest. Her mind kept replaying the day's events. She thought about the bag, the warrant, and Malik. The city felt different now. It was no longer just a place to patrol, it was full of hidden paths, secrets, and risks. She knew she had to stay alert. Before sleeping, Nina prepared her patrol bag for the next day. She reviewed her notes and made a list of locations to monitor. She understood that her role in this investigation was growing more important with each passing day. The bag she had found on a quiet street had opened a door to a complex case, and she was ready to follow it wherever it led. As she drifted off to sleep, Nina knew that the real challenge was just beginning. Observation, patience, and careful action would guide the next steps. She had discovered a small piece of evidence, but the larger picture was still hidden. And she was determined to uncover it. Tomorrow, the investigation would continue, and every moment would count. The quiet streets of the city held secrets, and Nina Khan was ready to find them. Officer Nina Khan arrived at the precinct early the next morning, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The previous day had been filled with observation, planning, and small discoveries, but today felt different. Today, she would begin watching Daniel Malik directly. The federal agents had made careful plans, and she had a critical role. Every detail she noticed could help them move closer to capturing him. Lieutenant Harris handed her a folder with updated information. "These are the areas Malik has been seen in recently," he said. "You will monitor these locations carefully. Remember, do not approach him. Observation only. Report everything." Nina nodded, her mind focused. She checked her patrol car, ensuring her camera and notebook were ready. She thought about the small blue bag she had found and the federal warrant she had discovered inside it. The bag had seemed harmless at first, but now it was a key piece of evidence, and she was directly involved in a high-stakes investigation. As she drove through the city streets, Nina kept her eyes sharp. She scanned the sidewalks, the parked cars, and the small alleys. The city was alive with people going about their day, unaware of the investigation unfolding around them. Nina's heart raced as she thought about the man she was watching. Malik was careful and clever, and she needed to be just as careful. After a few hours, she spotted him. Daniel Malik was walking briskly down a quiet street near the warehouse address from the receipt she had found. He wore a simple jacket and carried a small bag. He glanced around occasionally, as if checking for anyone watching him. Nina's hands tightened around her notebook. She knew that one wrong move could alert him. She followed him at a safe distance, staying out of sight. Malik entered a small cafe, glancing around before choosing a table near the back. Nina parked across the street, keeping a clear view of the entrance. She noted the time and watched his behavior. He pulled out a notebook from his bag and began writing. He seemed focused, almost methodical. Nina made detailed notes about everything she saw. The way Malik held his pen, the items he used, even the people who walked past him, all of it could be important. She remembered what the federal agents had said, small habits could give clues. She carefully recorded everything, knowing that these details might help predict his next moves. After some time, Malik left the cafe and walked toward a quiet alley. He stopped briefly, checked the street, and slipped a small envelope under a loose brick near a building wall. Nina's heart pounded. That action was suspicious. She took careful notes, describing the exact location and the building's features. This could be a clue to where evidence was hidden. Nina reported her observations to the federal agents later that day. They listened carefully, nodding as she described every action. "Excellent work," Agent Carter said. "Your attention to detail is exactly what we need. This envelope might be important. We will investigate discreetly." Despite the praise, Nina felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She realized how dangerous this investigation could be. Malik was clever and cautious, and any misstep could put the operation at risk. Yet, she also understood the importance of her role. Her observations were now a crucial part of a federal investigation that could have major consequences. That evening, as Nina returned to the precinct, she reflected on the day. She realized that she had been part of something much bigger than a simple patrol. Her small decision to pick up the found bag had set all of this in motion. She thought about the envelope Malik had hidden and the way he had carefully observed his surroundings. It was clear he knew how to protect his activities. Nina knew she had to stay focused. The days ahead would require patience, attention, and careful action. Every observation, every note, every detail could bring the investigation closer to a breakthrough. She reviewed her notes before leaving, making sure nothing was missed. Before going home, Nina walked past the street where she had first spotted Malik. The city seemed calm, but she knew that underneath the quiet surface, important events were unfolding. She took a deep breath, ready for the challenges ahead. Her role in the investigation was growing more important, and she was determined to do her best. Nina returned to her apartment that night, exhausted but alert. She knew tomorrow would bring more observation, more notes, and possibly more discoveries. Her mind was full of questions, but she also felt a sense of purpose. The simple act of finding a bag had led her into the middle of a complex investigation. She realized that sometimes, ordinary decisions could lead to extraordinary responsibilities. As she prepared for sleep, Nina thought about Malik, the bag, and the envelope he had hidden. She understood that patience and careful observation would be key. She was ready to face the coming days, knowing that her actions could make a difference. The investigation had truly begun, and Nina Khan was determined to follow it wherever it led. Officer Nina Khan arrived at the precinct just as the first light of morning touched the city streets. The team had been preparing for days, carefully watching Daniel Malik's movements, and now they had a critical lead. The warehouse near the edge of the city, the location from the receipt and Malik's suspicious envelope, was under careful surveillance. Today, they were going to see if it held the answers they needed. Lieutenant Harris handed Nina a small earpiece and a notebook. "You will coordinate with the federal team," he said. "Stay in communication and report everything. Do not approach him directly. Observation only." Nina nodded, her heart racing. She had been through patrols and small investigations, but this was different. Everything depended on precision and patience. One mistake could ruin the entire operation. The federal agents had parked discreetly around the warehouse. Surveillance cameras were set up in hidden positions. Nina parked her car a few streets away, maintaining a clear view of the building. She could see the warehouse doors, a few parked delivery vans, and the quiet alley where Malik had previously hidden an envelope. Hours passed slowly as Nina observed the area. Malik had not yet appeared. She used the time to review her notes, checking every detail from previous observations. She thought about the small blue bag she had found on Maple Avenue, the federal warrant, and the hidden envelope. It had all led to this moment. The sense of anticipation was almost unbearable. Finally, she saw him. Daniel Malik walked toward the warehouse, carrying a small bag over his shoulder. He glanced around carefully, checking the street and the buildings nearby. Nina's hands tightened around her notebook. She noted his exact movements and reported them quietly to the federal team through the earpiece. Malik entered the warehouse, closing the door behind him. Nina and the agents waited silently. The man inside was unaware that he was being watched closely. Nina's eyes were sharp, capturing every small motion. Malik moved cautiously, counting papers and arranging small bags similar to the one Nina had found. Her heart pounded. This was the evidence the federal team had been looking for. Agent Carter whispered through the earpiece. "This is the moment we have been waiting for. Stay focused, Nina. We are going to move in soon." Nina's breathing slowed as she concentrated on her observations. Malik continued his work inside, unaware of the network of officers surrounding the warehouse. Every movement he made seemed deliberate. He checked the doors, glanced at the windows, and handled the items with care. It was clear he knew how to protect his activities. After a while, Malik bent down near a stack of boxes. Nina remembered the envelope he had hidden before. He pulled it from the bag and examined its contents. Her pulse quickened. That envelope could hold the key evidence for the federal case. She carefully noted the location and described it to the agents. The federal team signaled that it was time. They moved quietly, coordinating with Nina's observations. Every step was calculated. The agents entered from different points around the warehouse while Nina remained at a safe distance, monitoring the situation. Her heart raced as she watched the operation unfold. Inside, Malik seemed surprised by the sudden presence of agents. He froze for a moment, then tried to move, but it was too late. The federal team quickly secured the area, ensuring that no evidence could be destroyed. Malik's calm demeanor vanished, replaced by shock and confusion. Nina stayed alert, watching the scene. She saw Malik being escorted out of the warehouse in handcuffs. The bags and papers he had been organizing were taken as evidence. The small blue bag she had found weeks ago had indirectly led to this moment. Her instincts and careful observation had played a part in a successful operation. Back at the precinct, Malik was booked, and the evidence was catalogued. The federal agents thanked Nina for her role. "Without your discovery and attention to detail, we might not have caught him so quickly," Carter said. Nina felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had been part of something bigger than herself, and it had worked. Despite the excitement, Nina also felt relief. The tension of the past days, the hours of watching and reporting, had been intense. She realized how small decisions could lead to significant outcomes. A simple act of picking up a bag on a quiet street had helped capture a dangerous criminal and secure important evidence. That evening, Nina returned to her apartment. The city felt calm again, but she knew it had changed. The quiet streets, the unnoticed alleys, and the hidden activities had revealed a world she had not fully seen before. She thought about Malik, the investigation, and the importance of her role. She had learned patience, observation, and careful judgment, the qualities that made a good officer. As she prepared for sleep, Nina reflected on the journey. From a found bag to a federal investigation, every moment had mattered. She knew her work would continue, but for now, justice had been served. The city was safer, and she had played a key part in making it so. Nina took a deep breath, ready for whatever the future held. She had discovered that even ordinary nights could turn extraordinary, and that courage, attention, and responsibility could make a real difference. Officer Nina Khan watched from a distance as Daniel Malik was escorted out of the warehouse in handcuffs. His calm demeanor from the past days had vanished, replaced by shock and confusion. The federal agents carefully documented the evidence he had been handling, including the small blue bag Nina had found weeks earlier. Every item was important, and every detail mattered. Nina felt a mixture of relief and pride. The investigation had been intense, requiring patience, focus, and careful observation. She had been part of the process from the very beginning, and now the pieces were falling into place. Malik's arrest was a success, and the evidence would ensure he faced the consequences of his actions. Back at the precinct, Malik was booked and questioned under federal supervision. Officers catalogued the contents of the warehouse, including the small envelopes, papers, and bags. Every piece of evidence added to the case. The federal agents praised Nina for her role. "Your discovery of the bag was the first step that led us here," Agent Carter said. "Without your attention and quick thinking, we might not have captured him so efficiently." Nina nodded, feeling the weight of their words. She had acted out of curiosity at first, picking up a bag on a quiet street. Now, she understood that small actions could have major consequences. One ordinary evening had turned into a critical part of a federal investigation. Later, Nina sat at her desk, reviewing her notes from the past few days. Every observation, every report, every detail she had recorded had contributed to the case. She felt satisfied knowing that her careful work had helped catch a dangerous criminal. The city felt a little safer because of her actions, and that thought filled her with pride. Lieutenant Harris came over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did well, Nina," he said. "This case could have been much more complicated without your role. You stayed alert, made careful decisions, and contributed to the success of the operation. You should be proud." Nina smiled, grateful for his words. She had learned a lot from the experience. Patience, observation, and responsibility had been key. She realized that being a good officer was not just about following orders, but also about noticing small details and acting with care. The federal agents had to take Malik into custody for the next phase of the investigation, which involved more serious charges and court proceedings. Nina watched as they drove him away, knowing that justice was beginning to take its course. She thought about the people who had been affected by his crimes and felt relieved that they would now be protected. That evening, the precinct returned to its usual routine. The quiet streets of the city were calm again, but Nina knew that the lessons she had learned would stay with her. She thought about the small blue bag she had found, the federal warrant inside it, and the chain of events that had followed. What had seemed ordinary had led to extraordinary outcomes. Nina drove home slowly, reflecting on the past days. The city seemed peaceful, but she understood that danger and hidden activities could be anywhere. Her role as an officer required constant vigilance. Yet, she also knew that careful observation and dedication could make a difference. She felt a renewed sense of purpose. At home, Nina set the bag aside, the small symbol of her curiosity that had turned into a vital discovery. She thought about Malik, the investigation, and the teamwork that had led to his arrest. Every step had required focus and attention, and she had contributed to every success. As she prepared for sleep, Nina felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She realized that even ordinary moments could become extraordinary when handled with care and responsibility. Picking up a bag on a quiet street had changed the course of events, leading to justice being served. She had learned the importance of patience, observation, and careful action. Before closing her eyes, Nina reflected on the journey. The investigation had tested her skills, her judgment, and her courage. She had faced uncertainty and danger, but she had remained calm and focused. Now, the city was safer, Malik was in custody, and she had played a part in that outcome. Nina smiled softly, feeling proud and ready for the challenges ahead. She knew that the work of an officer never truly ended, but she had proven to herself that even small actions could have a powerful impact. The quiet streets of her city held many secrets, but she was ready to face them with awareness, courage, and determination. And with that thought, Nina finally rested, knowing that justice had been served and that her role in the story had made a real difference.